Special thank you to Seed and Stone Cidery and Lucky Buzz Meadery for sponsoring the show today. They help to make this show possible and supply us with the occasional beverage when we're out there. They've got 10 taps full of meads and ciders made right there in-house. They've also got all sorts of awesome events going on, including an open mic almost every single Thursday where you can come out and show your musical talent. So all you songwriters out there, stop out and grab a cider or a mead and tell them that the Songwriters Couch and the Patrick Joanne Band sent you. Again, Seed and Stone Cidery right here in Rochester, New York. Go out and visit them and let them know we sent you. Thanks, guys. All right, welcome to episode number 31 of the Songwriter's Couch. What do we call it? The Songwriter's Couch, right? Is that the name of it? Episode 31. Before we get started here, I want to thank you beautiful people out there first. Before we even thank our sponsors, I want to thank each and every one of you that watch, that listen, that download, that share this with your friends, that comment on how great our guests are and how sexy they look and how fabulous I am and how fabulous I look all the time. So thank you for watching and listening and taking screenshots and using them as your wallpaper on your computer. We really appreciate it because without you guys watching and listening, we have nothing. But secondly, I do want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring the show. We really appreciate it. It helps keep the lights on, the cameras going, and the like. New strings on my guitar every once in a while, and maybe an alcoholic beverage to enjoy while we're doing this little shindig here. And thirdly, I'd like to thank our patrons who every month donate a bit of their income to help keep this going and keep songwriters motivated, I guess you can say, to come on and have us help them get exposed to a new audience. So thank you to our patrons, thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to you guys for watching and listening. And don't forget to do the thing down there, the like, the subscribes, the comments, and whatever you call it. And on today's show, an individual who needs no introduction, but I will introduce you nonetheless. The one, the only, Mr. Taurus Savant. And I know I said I was going to not mispronounce your name, but I didn't mispronounce it on purpose. I just stumbled over saying it.
I have that effect.
Is that okay? Yeah, I got a little nervous.
My power, my influence.
That's right. But thanks for coming on the show, Taurus.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So Taurus and I have been friends for a long time through all sorts of crazy events and shows and things, and I still have yet to make it out to an official show of yours in at least the last year here. So I'm going to make a promise to. Can we cut to this camera? This is for you, Taurus, okay. I'm going to make a promise to all our watchers and our listeners that as long as I don't have a show and I don't have a prior engagement at your next, I will be there, Taurus, I promise. I promise. And you guys can all hold me accountable there. You can comment and say, Pat, you lying son of a bee, you said you were going to do this. And you didn't. You let them know, Taurus, if I don't. But let's get you introduced to these beautiful people who may or may not know who you are and what you do. So I guess speaking to that camera there, tell them where they can find you, what you do, and any links or what have you want to share with them.
Okay, well, first of all, my name is Taurus Savant, Taurus Savant. I am a creative human being, artist, singer-songwriter, published author, poet, community advocate, painter, Renaissance man. That name was given to me, so I will wear that hat proudly. You can find me on the internet, Instagram.com/Taurus Savant, YouTube.com/Taurus Savant, TaurusSavant.bandcamp.com. I'm also on Spotify, and other places you will see me eventually trying to make a big old splash in 2024. So thank you to everybody who's been paying me attention and ladling the love on me. I really appreciate it.
I like that. Ladling the love. Pouring it over you like hot Molasses?
as one would.
Yeah, no, hot molasses would hurt probably. No, but pouring, you want it to be a pleasant thing. Warm lava it'd burn you. Maybe like warm,
A decadent
warm
shower
coconut
of
oil.
love. There you go. That's what we want. That's what we want.
Smooth and silky.
Very much. Always staying moisturized.
So before we get started with the getting into the depths of your psyche, Taurus, and why you make music and why you create and all the like, we've been doing something here where we have a little icebreaker, so to speak. And I got this from the corporate world and from possibly another podcast that does it every once in a while. Uh-huh. But it's called Two Truths and a Lie. And it helps me get to know my guests a little bit better, even though I'm interviewing them. And the way that it works is you tell me three things, facts, let's say, and I have to guess which of those quote-unquote facts, doing air quotes for those just listening, is the lie out of the three things. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm gonna try and play a little thing, and I try and come up with one every time, but I fail miserably to do like a theme song to it. So let's do a. How was that?
Exquisite.
Was that all right? I promise I'll come up with one. Maybe I'll do something on a keyboard and just throw it in there digitally after the fact. I'll do it in post, as they say. So, Taurus, are you ready to
ready.
deliver? Oh, if you guys hear that little tune playing in the background, maybe we'll do that. Maybe that should be the theme song there. But that's our laundry.
I'm jamming today.
Yeah, I said, Taurus, bring your laundry over. Let's have let's do a couple of loads together and get shit clean. So here we are. But that's what you're hearing in the background. So Taurus, let's hear your facts here.
Let's air it out. Well, first of all, I am a licensed wine connoisseur. I got my license a few years ago, but people don't know that because we try to conceal the fact that I definitely enjoy a good splash of wine every now and then. But people know that part about me already.
That you imbibe, right?
Yeah,
imbibe in the wine.
That's okay.
I like that word, right?
Learn me a new term today. I want to absorb that. Edify me, please.
Ooh, edify. We're doing all sorts of vocabulary lessons here.
As one
like
does. I have the wonderful fortune of being in talks with potential music with a Grammy-nominated songwriter singer of great esteem.
Oh my.
And I'm looking forward to my second trip out of the United States, leaving North America. I've been out of North America several times. I mean, I may be a New York man, but I am of a worldly.
We're born and raised New York?
In Far Rockaway, Queens, but
that's right.
Born there,
That's
but
right.
raised here in Rochester.
Yeah, and I did know that part of it.
You did.
But I wanted my wonderful audience to know that. That's kind of why we clicked in the beginning, because we're both from Queens. So
A-Train.
Yes, that's right. I was the E, the F, the R, and then eventually the N train came to Astoria. So the N and the W.
I've taken the N-Train myself, too.
The N train I like because it stops the last stop on it is Ditmars Boulevard, and so for a while I lived kind of over by Ditmars in Astoria. So you would just go, even if you fell asleep on the train late at night, you'd always hit your stop because it was just the end of the line. So all right, so two truths and a lie.
Or three truths.
Getting prepared for your second time out of the country. Grammy associated singer-songwriter nominated, and then wine connoisseur certified.
What great short-term memory
sommelier.
you have.
That's right. I have very little memory.
Same.
Sommelier.
Can we also just let them know that Allie is who just just reminded you.
That's and yes, thank you. I want to thank Allie as well for always producing the show.
You're great.
And running cameras behind the scenes here. So what do you think, Allie? Where are you leaning on this?
I'm gonna go the wine one.
Sommelier. Is that what it's called? Something like that, right?
That sounds about right.
So I think I know you, Taurus.
That's the thing. You think you know me.
So I'm gonna go with your third answer. Can you just wake that up? Okay. I'm gonna go with your third answer of traveling out of the country, just because I feel like you're just like me, and you're a last minute kind of person sometimes, and you didn't come up with anything until right when I asked you to come up with two truths and a lie, and that last one, I believe, was something you came up with on the spot. So hold on, wait, let's... And we'll have your answer, Taurus, and...
Are you ready?
I like that little tease. We'll just make you wait as long as humanly possible for the answer to this question.
We'll be back after these brief messages.
That's right, from our sponsors.
And then it fades back in, and my mouth is agape. So the truth is that in the 10 years that we've known each other, you still have much more to know about me, because I do have an enhanced ID, but not a passport. I'm trying to get one. So I've definitely been out of this country. I'm trying to go again.
But nothing planned.
Oh, no, something's planned. Something's planned. I'm getting out of here.
Right.
Definitely for summer to do something. I got outfits for the beach and everything. I need that.
So
moment.
that's true.
That's true.
So which one is the lie?
Well, our lovely lady got that one right.
Oh, Allie.
In reality, while I am very much, well, I would consider myself a wine connoisseur, I'm not licensed. Actually, I have a neighbor, and he is licensed.
Wonderful. Well, so here's the thing about wine. There's a I used to own the cider bar too, right? So there's a certification kind of for cider. But the funny thing about most of that stuff is wine may be a little more matured in its like education on it. Cider is not. It's like there's a certification that happens, but I can say, and all the cider people, if anyone's watching, is going to hate me for this, but I don't think it's mature enough to say, oh yeah, you're an expert on cider, because cider is so different than everything else. So, but I wouldn't. The reason I say that is because I wouldn't get down on yourself on not being an expert. Because as long as you like to drink it,
I like to
then
drink
you're
it.
an expert.
But I wouldn't mind getting a license to do that. I think that it'd be a nice, fun party trick to kind of bring wines. I had a friend who liked to pair wines with meals, so I've been getting better at like kind of finding things to go with, like a nice steak or like a chicken pasta dinner, and then just having a glass of wine to hug with it.
What kind of wine would be your go-to? Like, is it reds? Is it whites?
Well, I used to be exclusively a white wine guy. I wasn't too fond of reds until I kind of got introduced to it, like maybe 6 or so years ago, because I felt it was like a little too dry. But now I actually kind of like it a little bit more than the white wines. Like my favorite right now is Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, it's a very hearty wine with a lot of body. And Sauvignon Blanc, which is the white version of it, which is just as body, but in a different kind of occasion. High alcoholic percentage. So it tastes. I like it because it tastes delicious. The side effect is that it gets
That's
you drunk.
sometimes also how I get described. High alcohol content, full bodied. Yes, that's
an accurate description.
and very dry, very very dry, Taurus. So you know why? If I drink wine, I primarily will go with a white, drier. But do you know why I do that?
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So it's not because of the flavor necessarily of it, because I do like drier red wines. But I drank so much boxed garbage wine when I was younger, and it was always red for some reason. Like I loved the red wine, and it just ruined it for me. You know, it was just so terrible. So now every time I smell it, it even if it's a good red wine, it reminds me of that crappy boxed wine.
But have you really
And I
lived
can't
if you
do it.
haven't had boxed wine?
That's true.
There's a point in
That
your
is
life where
true.
you will have to have
Yeah,
a boxed
yeah.
wine.
And not only that, you haven't lived if you haven't taken the bag out of the box and then put it in a backpack and then walked around maybe at the beach at night, things like that.
I won't say that I haven't done that. I won't say that I haven't done that actually recently.
I think most people, if I'm going to continue to be friends with them, have to have had done a similar kind of thing.
You and I will have our day.
Can I ask you this? Were you a nighttime beach person or a daytime beach person? The reason I asked that, I'm not a big fan of the daytime beach thing, like going there when there's lots of people on the beach. There's usually kids running around. You're all sandy. It's hot. Water's all salty. I like to go at night, bottle of wine or something, a little booze, bring my guitar out, hang out on the beach like one of those douchebags that do that sort of thing. I don't wear the polo shirt or anything like that, but
in the cargo shorts.
That's right, in the cargo shirt. There's some meme that's going around where
You put so much in your pocket.
that's right. You
You
can
know?
fit a lot in the cargo pants pockets. But were you a nighttime or a daytime beach person? Would you say?
I mean, I've always been a daytime. I've never been a person to like go to the beach at night by myself, but I've had friends who have taken me out and we've done like bonfires and other like sorts of like fun activities at the beach that you would do at night.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I can get with this, especially when it's like a night where like the moon is out and like you can see the reflection of the moon like on the water and it's like a nice cool like 74 degrees. It's a good time.
Yeah.
I want a beach moment like that, but not in Rochester. I want to be elsewhere for that.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason. Because in Queens you have Jones Beach and you have like the beaches over there, so you have the ocean in front of you. That's definitely a different scenario. I remember lots of nights hanging out on the beach.
And that is the beach. It may not be the beach to you all, but it's the beach to us. That is the ocean.
Yeah, Jones
that is
Beach.
really the ocean.
What'd you say?
Ken does beach.
Yeah. Oh, Ken. Oh, that's right. I was singing the Barbie theme song.
Ken does beach.
Did you watch the Barbie movie?
I haven't. I've
No?
heard a lot of people who tell me a lot about it. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. Like if you sit me down and go, "We're watching Barbie," then I will watch it.
Yeah.
I haven't like sought it out for myself. But
It's fun. It's a fun movie. I actually enjoy it. And one of the things I like is because it's a technical, like from a technical aspect, the way that they filmed it was in Dolby Vision, I think it's called. Dolby Vision. So like the quality of the picture is Dolby, some magic that they do, and the Dolby sound that they do, the Atmos sound. So
we love that.
that's I nerd out a little bit at movies, even if I don't necessarily like the movie itself. I'll watch it if it's like technically sound.
IMAX 3D.
Because I'm such an audio person. And speaking of audio,
Oh,
you're also a songwriter, Taurus, right?
that tends to happen.
You like that transition, that harsh transition from Barbie to songwriting?
You landed the plane.
That's
The drink's still on the table. Good job.
that's right. So what got you started in? I guess did because you're a multidisciplinary, I'll call it, creative person, right? And I'm kind of in the same way as long as I'm doing something, creating something, I'll I'm happy. And then if I'm not for long periods of time, I get very like I've got to go make something right now. So what started your like creative journey? Was it always music or was it?
Well, originally it was actually art. Like I used to I still do. I used to just draw pictures on the back of my homework when I was a kid, and my mom used to get me like all these like subject notebooks that was supposed to be for my schoolwork, and then I would fill them up with drawings. I'd do like take notes in school and make drawings on the back of them. But as I would, grow up and find all the interests in life that children find. Like I was a big video game person and still am now, so I always liked the things I heard, so I would kind of imitate the noises. And my mother would get tired of hearing that. She would very much be like, "Shut up." My cousin had a tape recorder, and it was like one of those like double things where you could like record your voice, but then like layer it over like another cassette tape. So we would like kind of sort of make songs for play. And it never really made much ado about it. I just liked to sing. It wasn't a thing like I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I learned to read at a young age, so I enjoyed writing. English was my favorite language. English. English was my favorite subject in school, so I was...
It's funny, me too. I mean, obviously music too, but English was always one of my favorites.
I enjoyed it. And then I eventually started writing poetry as a fun way to express myself, but I kept it to myself, and I didn't like start putting that out there until I started like kind of going out to like places where people were performing, like open mics and such. And so I was always making music. A friend of mine was nice enough to provide me with a digital audio workstation for my 15th birthday, and it's what I still use to this day.
AKA a DAW.
A DAW.
A DAW, yeah. If you ever hear a DAW, DAW.
That's the one.
Anyway, digital audio workstation.
That's the one. And I was, playing around with that, showing like my internet friends, and they would think it's like kind of cool, and I kept it to myself. I was just making kind of fun stuff. And then eventually I came to the conclusion of, okay, what if I took the poetry aspect and then the music aspect and then smashed them together? And it's like, could I write a song? I didn't think that I could, and I just started like making fun little demos just to see if I could, and I showed them to my friends at the time. They really appreciated it, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. I never really thought that was going to kind of be, I guess, in a sense, my life's calling. I guess the biggest way that people connect with me now.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for the ability to be able to do it. Like, I didn't take any classes. Like, I didn't have like a mentor. I didn't like take any lessons. I just kind of like went on the computer and fiddled with the buttons and turned knobs. And every time I learned something new until, here we are today, several songs later.
You know what's funny about that story too? I remember doing a lot of drawing. Now, I will say this: I'm not the best artist, so that's not necessarily my calling. I was okay though. Like I could draw something that was kind of cool to look at or whatever. But my favorite medium of all time for drawing anything was either a black or a blue ballpoint pen, and my mom used to. You used to have to put book covers on your textbooks. It would always be the supermarket paper bags, and then she'd repurpose them, and but the ballpoint pen on a textbook cover that's been wrapped in the shopping bag, the paper shopping bag, because the texture and the feel of like the textbook covers were always kind of soft, so the ballpoint pen would like kind of like go into the paper. My favorite place to draw. Second favorite medium though was also book bags and bags like that, because it has this pattern kind of like the couch has here, where you could draw a perfectly straight line without a ruler because you could follow where the threads are. So you could draw things that were kind of cool based on the pattern of it's really strange, but that was the extent of my art career.
Very perceptive.
And then I stopped. I was like, I don't think the medium of school bags and textbook covers is what people want to see in art galleries, but who knows?
I think you'd be really surprised.
It's true.
You might have a $15,000 piece on
that
your
is
hands
true.
And you
People
don't even know.
Yeah, people now like eat spaghetti in the middle of an empty room, and that's art. So maybe you're right on that. So was anyone in your family like artistic? Like, where did the creative stuff kind of come from? Was it?
Well, my mom and my sister, they're artistic in a way that they like to kind of like make designs. So like my mom, she's like a really she's like the leopard print queen. She likes everything leopard print. So like rather than going out and buying leopard print things, she and my sister would like get together. She took like a garbage can and they actually like painted leopard spots on it, or they did like dishware and tables and stuff. So they didn't like follow art as like a career, but they kind of had like a drawing little thing. Yeah. So they're makers, I'd call them.
It's interesting though too that you found your way from probably that sort of spirit of living, of like creating stuff around, because that happens even in my regular life. I like to like make things kind of beautiful and like make it like, part of my cleanliness, I think, is that like making the room look beautiful so I can look at it afterwards.
That you have.
But but same thing with like, I like to make things so I can like look at it afterwards and appreciate, the beauty of it. And it's like interesting because my dad was a musician, but same as you, I never thought, I'm going to make a career out of it until maybe I was a teenager. I was like starting to get a job, and I'm like, I wouldn't mind doing this, because I started seeing, bands like Nirvana and whatever that were kind of garage bands that were making a living off it. And I was like, maybe I could actually do that as like as a job. So poetry, and then you started mashing it. So this DAW that you had, though, how did you figure out how to make music? I guess like in the beginning, because you had no schooling, no.
Yeah, I mean,
like, formal
I
training.
had a 2004 Windows XP desktop with a
Nice.
whopping hard drive size of 32 gigabytes. That was state of the art at the time. But I just kind of like fiddled with the buttons. Thankfully it had a sequencer and it had like a piano roll, which made it somewhat
nice.
simple to kind of just like, okay, find the instruments you wanted. And I remember because I was using the demo version at the time, so it only came with like 10 or 15 instruments, and you could only do like 4-bar loops. So you couldn't really do too much, but the creative like process of like kind of putting it in the sequencer, which was the thing I kind of could make heads or tails of.
Yeah.
And then like just make these little simple loops until I was able to get a new version elsewhere.
You know what you made me just think about. So, sorry, I've had girlfriends before you, Allie.
What?
I've dated
As one
so
What?
in the past. And shout out to Joanna, wasn't my next girlfriend, but shout out to Joanna and Chris, my brother. But I was dating a friend of Joanna's, and I won't say her name on the podcast or whatever. But she just happened to have a computer, and when I started out young with music, right? So before computers were really in every home, and before the internet and all that stuff. So she happened to have a computer, and I went out and I purchased a like make your own beats program, so you could take like little short drum loops, little like it was all hip hop stuff, right? So record scratched and all that stuff, and. I think we were drinking one day, and she made a song, and then I made a song, and there was a point for me bringing this up. There was a girlfriend at the time, and I had made a song, and I was very. If you look at like the way the waveforms are, and the waveforms are just how sound looks, it was there was a pattern to the way I put it together, right? So there was like a very definitive, almost like verse part, where there's less instruments or something, and then you could tell, okay, there's a pattern and a reason behind the song. Her song, however, seemed to just be it was just all over the place, right? But it still sounded good. Like what she had made, I was like, oh, that's actually very good, even though she wasn't a musician at all. And the reason I bring this up is because you didn't have any schooling or anyone in your family that was like a professional musician, or that would say, okay, this is how you make a chorus, this is how you make a bridge, and that can be a blessing and a curse. A curse because maybe you don't have the underpinnings of like songwriting from the beginning, but it allows you to be almost more free with how you're approaching songwriting. And so the reason I'm bringing that up now is because I'm wondering, when you first got that DAW and you have the ability to add in little drum loops and little sound effects, how did you approach that? And then do you still kind of do that in that similar way now, except more advanced?
Yeah.
So I forget what my question
So
is.
to go back a decade from when I discovered that, even when I was a kid, like I had a Super Nintendo, and there was a game called Mario Paint. And in Mario Paint, you get a mouse, and it has like you create your own images, but it also has a music editor. So like you can make like very primitive like musical loops with that, but you can only use like 3 sounds on like a particular note at once. So it was kind of limited if you wanted to do like a percussion, an accompaniment, and then a melody, because then you'd have to cut out one for the other. But I got through that. I also played like a smattering of keyboard, and I played a smattering of flute, but I play by ear. So like even if I don't have any formal musical training, of which I still like to get some, you know in your ear and your brain what sounds good,
Right.
and so you can kind of sort of like sometimes you, in the beginning it was almost like stumbling in the dark to try to find what you wanted. But what works for me is that I'm able to kind of be somewhere and think of a melody in my head, and I'll start like humming it or whatever, and I'll go to the computer and then just kind of lay it down that way. Some of them had like kind of percussion loops, but I didn't care much for the percussion loops as much as I cared for like the individual instrumental sounds, like a specific, like a kick and a snare and a hi-hat, rather than a whole like complete loop. I wanted to make that myself. So I would sequence it where I would, find the kick, find the snare, find the hi-hat, and then just plug it in until I made, a percussion that sounded good to me. And that's still what I do to this day. I know I have some friends who try to introduce a website called Splice to me. And I've heard of Splice, and I think Splice is neat for a lot of people who can take a lot of things and essentially, splice them together. They have a whole bunch of predetermined loops and pre-made loops, and you can put them together and really make some like really wonderful things. I try to do it, and I feel like I understand how it can be really, really helpful for folks who are like trying to find it. But for me, because I kind of already know what it is I'm looking for, I feel like it's kind of doing some of the work for me, and I like to kind of do the work myself.
Yeah.
Because I like to put in the melodies, I like to put in the percussion. So if it's pre-made, I guess I suppose, but like you can chop it up to kind of make it what you want. But to this day, even as recent as last night, you plug in the sequences. I love to kind of find the sounds, or even some of the synths, and I can make my own synths and some of my own sounds, or I'll even like find a way to record a noise that may sound like it could be a kick or a snare, or I'll make my own noise and put it in there and then interpolate it into the song.
Yeah, that's what I find myself now trying to put myself into into the frame of like get out of my understanding of songwriting and get more into the pure kind of feeling of it. And I feel, we got an alert coming. And it almost can be, so I feel like if you're approaching songwriting from the beginning, from a very structured, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and you know that, you've been taught it from the time you were little, then you kind of always approach the songwriting process from that. Whereas if you know nothing about songwriting, then you have this kind of approach to it that's purely based on what am I hearing? How do I want this to sound going forward? You're not thinking about structure almost at all during it. And then if you learn structure over time, then you're like, okay, I'm going to approach it first from how it sounds, and then maybe try and constrain it into these, a hook that's going to be memorable and all that kind of stuff. I'm almost jealous of people that didn't know songwriting structure before they started writing songs, because there's this like level of free form to the songwriting that I feel like sometimes I can miss when I'm approaching a song. Do you tend to write lyrics first, or is it generally music?
It depends. I mean, sometimes the lyrics will come first. I'll just be walking down the street, or I'll be like at work, or I'll be in the shower, and then words will just come to me, or melodies will come to me, or even sometimes the music will come. And so to make life easier for myself, I've learned to record it, get to my phone or get somewhere as fast as possible, record it as a voice note, then bring it back to my laptop so I can then interpolate what I'm hearing into a song. To your point about the structure of songwriting, I mean, being able to write poetry and kind of learning how to do that gives you kind of a structure, because poetry kind of works in the same way, but it's also abstract in a way that you can really take it and really do whatever you want. And I mean, there are indeed, musical rules, but those rules can be made to be broken. And I feel like I'm always willing to break those rules as long as it's aesthetically, like to my ear, it sounds nice.
Yeah.
Because even there's certain things where it's like, I'm making like, I don't know, like something like with a piano, like instrument in there. And it's probably not something maybe somebody on an actual piano could feasibly play, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
Or certain things like, I mean, some people will do like pianos and they'll do like a pitch bend on the piano. And it's like, that's not what that does, but people will do it because it's fun.
Yeah. So, and stay on that for one second. So one of the reasons that's so interesting to me too is because I read, or I think it was you can cut back to the, so I think that it was an interview with Eddie Van Halen. No, I'm sorry. It was an interview with either David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, one of the lead singers of Van Halen, right? And they were talking about Eddie Van Halen, the guitar player Eddie Van Halen, and some of the solos he would write would be comped versions of different solos, right? So, for instance, a lot of people probably know the song "Eruption" by Van Halen. It's a crazy guitar thing, especially in the beginning of it, right? There's this like tapping, all this stuff. But the way that actually ended up getting written was he did multiple takes of this intro, multiple takes of the guitar solos and stuff, and then they would comp them together in post-production, right? And then he would have to go back and learn the comped version of the solo, some of which, though, was like, there's parts up here and there's parts down here because they were different solos. So maybe the second time he went through the solo, he was playing a lot down here, so he just happened to be down there. But it sounded good to comp that part with this part. But when he went to go play it live, some of it was like almost humanly impossible to do what was on the recording, but he had to learn how to do it. And so in turn, the use of the technology and the limitations of that made the music better, which in turn then made him a better musician. And the way that I sometimes, especially early on when I started learning production of music, I said this to a studio guy once. I was like, sometimes when I'll write a melody for a song, right? I'll come up with a riff, I'll record it, and I'll sing just not worrying about being in key, not worrying about the notes I'm hitting, not worrying about the melody, just singing kind of what I'm feeling at the moment. Then I'll, after the fact, turn auto-tune like as hard as possible, and auto-tune will shove some of those notes that maybe were off into a spot where I wouldn't think to go there vocally or melodically, and then I'll go back and learn it after the fact and add that into the song. Does that make sense? So like I'll take the technology that has these limits, or that has the technology that I don't quite understand all of it, how it's working. I'm just like, all right, let me fuck around with this thing that's being used and use it as a tool to then make my songs better. And it kind of seems like you did that as you were learning music. You're learning, the tool is forcing you to do things that you maybe normally wouldn't do if you were just singing in the shower, let's say, right?
Yeah, minus the auto-tune.
That's right.
But no shade to anybody who does. But
here's the deal, though. Yeah. I'm not auto-tuning. I mean, there is some pitch correction that happens in every production now, but I used it as like a tool to come up with things that I wouldn't have vocally without throwing that on so hard. It sounded like Kanye West, early Kanye West, but
I will say that there's been other times when I'm coming up with ideas for a song and I have an idea for a melody that I kind of haven't yet worked out in my head. Sometimes I will sequence the melody, and that won't be the melody. I mean, that won't be like, I'll do like an instrument, like a piano or whatever. That would kind of help me figure out how the structure of that melody would go with the musicality of the song, and then I can kind of play it back, listen to how that goes, and then if I like it, then I can try to change it, adjust it, and then maybe possibly record it if I like it enough. I mean, as you say that, I thought of one in particular, because it was a song I thought about in the shower. This was in 2018. It's a song I have called Attention, one of my favorites. And I remember I was just in the shower and I came up and I just remember I was going like, hey, you, I'm feeling some tension. And I was like, okay. So I had that and I came down to the computer just with that melody in my head. But like, if you heard that,
I know what song that is.
As everybody listens to that, I mean, if you haven't heard it now, if you actually heard the song, that it accompanies, you wouldn't imagine like the chords that would be in the background of that. And that's like one of my favorite things to do is to always catch your ear off guard, like kind of throw in a chord. It's like, oh, what's that? Or or just like an extra harmony or an accompaniment that's colorful, that adds to the song without it being too distracting, but also just kind of keeps you engaged. And so even if sometimes I'll make like it's music that has like the same instrumentation kind of throughout, but like playing with that melody, playing with the music, so that it, even if it's the same four chords, you know, there's things that you can do with the music and things you can do with your voice that can like really kind of, I don't know, make it a nice little tango.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that I love about your music too, is that there's always, it's never, well, some of it is expected. Like it's comfortable enough where you don't feel like, oh, this is just musical salad, where like I don't get what's going on, like it's just someone showing off their technical prowess, right? Because there's music out there that's like, oh god, you're just playing for like the one other musician that knows that scale, you know. But your music is it always, there's always something interesting in every single one of your songs that is like not where necessarily my mind would go at first, but it's like, oh, that makes sense though. And it's good because it keeps it interesting, you know? And I think that it reminds me of that kind of using technology or using the tools that you have in front of you to kind of be a better musician, I guess you could say, or to come up with more interesting stuff. It's kind of like Bob Ross, the painter. I mean, you know,
happy little treat.
About like a happy little accident that happens. You know, that's like, oh, that's actually super interesting.
And sometimes it is that.
Yeah, and it like you know, you record something, maybe you fuck up a little bit, but then after the fact, you listen to it 100 times, and you're like, actually, you know what, that actually works there. I'm going to keep that mistake that I made.
Sometimes I'm very good at cursing myself out when I'm doing the recording process. It can get real self-deprecating, but the joy of nailing it, getting it right, and most importantly, like, I also try to do some of these things with a band in mind. Like I've had a band a couple of times actually play something that I've composed, and that's kind of like something I envision for the future. Like I would love to have like a live band and background singers actually, like, because they can add that real good acoustic live flavor to it, and it's fun to interact with musicians and other people on the stage. Whereas when I'm at a show, you know, I mean, all of this stuff is stuff that I composed and wrote and arranged and recorded myself, but ultimately I am the man, and so I have to kind of be everything and have to be on stage kind of being as engaging as a band would be, but it's just me. But ultimately you just get up and just be yourself.
What's interesting though is even with a band, especially if you've written all the songs, you're still kind of directing what's happening. You know what I mean? That doesn't, I don't think that changes that much. What I will say though is we should definitely do something together, whether it be the band and I learn one of your songs, or you want to do some cover together or something. I think that we should have some sort of a set where you come up and do something together, because it is definitely a different feeling having a bunch of musicians on stage while you're doing your music, and kind of feeding off each other. And I always equate it. I know I say this, I probably said this every single episode, but I equate it to like sex or a relationship or whatever, like having sex on stage in front of an audience, but you're also sort of having sex with the audience at the same time. It's a very strange thing.
It's a performance, and you have a lot of people to please. However, I mean, I have successful shows, and people do keep coming back. So the idea of that butters my toast, and I would love the keys to that vehicle.
Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about doing something like that too. So the poetry thing, do you have? I mean, is there something that you're doing? I guess from a professional level, in regards to like your poetry and your other writing?
Well, technically yes, because that is kind of a part of my day job, of which I won't name, but it does involve that, and it's a very rewarding concept to be able to get a whole bunch of people excited about expressing themselves through poetry or any vehicle of art. That's always been like my MO since day one, regardless of whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's through poetry or art or music. It's the joy of being free, being an individual, expressing yourself. And as long as you're doing that authentically and you're doing it unapologetically, then I think you're doing, you know, the right thing. And so that's the joy in the poetry. And sometimes when people like look at my lyrics, like my song lyrics, they can read as poetry because some of them did start as poems and then became songs, and some went, you know, the other way. So I never really kind of ruled too many things out because you just never know what would become a song.
Are you ever, because your music, I'd say, is pretty, it's vulnerable. Like you definitely are honest about what the meaning behind the song, or even in the song, kind of emotionally vulnerable. Do you ever get nervous about sharing a song, or is there a song maybe that you're more comfortable with now that maybe you were like, okay, I don't know if I really want to play this in front of people, or because it's too.
I have felt that a couple of times, but ultimately, since the very beginning, I started making music for me first. And so sometimes there are songs, some that I've put out that I've been listening to like back and forth for like maybe a year or two before I decided to say, okay, maybe now I feel like I want to share this. Because I've had people come up to me after shows. I've had people come up to me or send me messages and say, I really like this song in particular, like really inspired me, or I really related to that. Because 99.99% of the songs that I write are songs that I've written from experience. Also, fun fact, I worked for a service a year and a half ago where I wrote personalized songs for people's special occasions.
Nice.
And that's kind of fun because like these are people now giving me their own personal stories, and I have to now translate that into music, and there's certain like kind of phrases and certain kind of dates and things that I have to put in there. But ultimately it's up to me to capture your story and put that in there. So I do believe like, the idea of writing fiction is fun. It's not a thing that I usually do because, I just tend to write from the heart, and whatever I'm feeling is whatever gets written. So there's a lot of songs that I've had in my catalog that was just like, I'd listen to it and I go, I know exactly what inspired that. I know who inspired that. I know what I was thinking of that day. I remember I came home and had that idea, and that was the song. But as far as putting it out there, I know that regardless of how I may feel like kind of reticent about how people will receive it, I know that somebody out there is going to receive it and go, that spoke to me. If it's a release for me, I release it out, and then you can choose to catch it if it resonates with you. And if it does, then it pleases me. And if it doesn't resonate with you, at least it pleased your ears.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I think sometimes it's it can be a daunting task to put out into the world something that, especially when it was written, was an emotion that almost you weren't prepared to deal with. And so somehow it comes out into a song or to a poem or to whatever. And then the audacity of us as artists to put it out there and assume that, either someone else has had a similar experience or can relate or would want to hear the story behind it. I think it's an amazing mark of kind of the bravery, especially as I think as men, right? As men, it can be. There can be this. See, I don't necessarily believe that society or anything is putting putting an emphasis on holding vulnerability back from men. I think it's an internal thing for men, because I feel like we always kind of want to be strong or independent. We joked about this earlier, which is why we're singing the Barbie song about being a strong, independent woman before. But I think that I think as artists, it's a sign of strength to release that vulnerability out in a way that's so beautiful and so raw. And I think I think it's interesting that the vulnerability in music and art from men is appreciated in such a way, whereas the actual expression sometimes of emotion in just a conversation can be so uncomfortable.
Very much that.
But you can sit there and watch a group of 5 men on a stage playing music, very soulful, sad music, and be like, "This is beautiful," and everyone, no one will think this is a sign of weakness that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm saying, and I wonder if you,
Well, I can tell you. Well, for one, while I do believe, people are doing gigs because they're gigs, they're shows, they get paid and you go home, there's still a little bit of yourself that you're putting into whatever performance you're giving. So even regardless of whether you're happy, sad, angry, or indifferent, that does kind of translate in the way that you would play the drums, the way you would mash the keyboards, the way you might enunciate when you sing. And I believe as men, especially me, I aim to subvert that expectations of what men should or shouldn't be doing and how they shouldn't. I mean, I choose to be vulnerable in my art and also in myself because I can't expect vulnerability from others if I'm not willing to give that myself. So I try to use my shows as a safe space to kind of tell folks like, this is me bearing my soul, and if you feel like you need to, this is an area in which you can do that and feel comfortable because I am laying down my sword and my shield so that you can do that. And so also to tell other men like it's a prison that they've kind of locked themselves in, that they also have the key and go, I'm stuck and I don't know how to get out. And it's like, just pick up the key, just pick it up and just unlock it, be free.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but sometimes I believe that, that especially young men can be afraid to do that to a certain point, and then it comes out as this like explosion at some point in their life, which is why sometimes men, like when they get emotional, sometimes it comes out as, I think, like anger sometimes because they've been holding it in for so long, or whatever. And I think music and the arts are such a great way to kind of vent off some of the steam of life and all that. And for any young men out there, or even young women that are feeling like they can't express themselves or can't be vulnerable, I think the arts and what have you are a great way to kind of to vent that and realize that there are other men or women or whoever out there that are also feeling similarly, and we've only got a few minutes here left, so I want to touch on a couple more things that you're doing in your life, and then we'll have you kind of talk about where they can find it one more time.
Sure.
But the community outreach stuff, do you want to talk about that at all here?
With the community outreach, I do it in a sense where I haven't been as physically out there as I really kind of have wanted to be. The past 5 years has been a big opportunity for me to kind of step back, regroup, and then kind of like really discern how I want to kind of move in that space. But ultimately, I show up at places and go, what are you guys doing? How can I help? I provide my wisdom and my insight as I can. And I provide support, and support doesn't always mean that you have to be physically out on the front. Support means that somebody calls you, somebody sends you an email and says, this is what I'm thinking about this. Can you help me, provide some clarity, or can you set a space for vulnerability, or meeting people, or even just kind of going out there working with young people and just kind of showing them that there is more to life than all of the stressors and things that's going on in this current world that's consuming us, but there's better world.
There's nothing unusual going on in the world right now.
Not at all.
It's all perfectly calm.
Not at all. But at the very least, we can be here for a good time and a long time. So what I like to do is just by existing, going out and, just sharing my story, sharing my narrative, and telling people about how they can get involved in their communities, how they can get involved in self-improvement, and just also like kind of going back to the men thing, just telling other men about how to be better men, because I do believe at some point in this lifetime, we're going to make a dent in the patriarchy, because when the most vulnerable are free to express themselves, then we all are. They just don't see it yet, but when they do, they'll realize that life will be a lot easier.
That's right. I love you, Taurus. And here, listen, I want to say thank you for being on the show. We're going to have you back at some point because I'm sure you're going to have a release coming out at some point too, either poetry or music or what have you. We might have some projects coming out. We still have to record the song that we co-wrote together. I swear to you,
Many moons
I'm going to
ago.
do it. I have a few co-writes that I really need to get, and I might do an Ed Sheeran thing where he releases the the collaboration albums in between his regular albums. So maybe we might have to do that. I'll put a whole EP out of some of these collabs.
Let's do it.
And in the meantime, let's tell everyone where they can find your existing stuff, where they can find you, and all that.
Yeah, so once again, Taurus Savant, TAURUSSAVANT.bandcamp.com. I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Spotify. I have an Instagram page. I'm also on the Twitter. And if you happen to see me out, say hello. Say that you saw me on the Patty Chow Show.
Yes, and if you cut to that, so one of the things I will say is putting yourself out there is also something that's very helpful. Networking, interacting with like-minded people, especially if you're creative, is super helpful because you realize that people do think in a similar way, or at least you have people that you can relate to out there. And the way that myself and Taurus here met each other was at a TEDx event here in Rochester. I don't know if I've ever told this story on a podcast, but we happened to be following each other on Twitter just because we were local musicians and what have you. I'm sitting in a couple of rows ahead of you, I believe, maybe 3 rows ahead of you. And I was checking out Twitter before the TEDx event started, and then I see a picture, and it's like the back of my head in a picture that Taurus had posted, and I was like, wait a second, is he sitting right behind me? And I turned around, sure enough, I think you were in either the row behind me or one row behind me. It's like, Taurus? Is that you over there? And then the beginning of a lovely friendship over the past what has it been?
It's 10 years
almost
now.
10 years.
Yeah, I had blue hair at the time.
Has started. So
now I have no hair.
That's right. I think I had no hair at the time, and now I have some hair on top, but no one ever knows with the hat on.
I have the picture. I can
That's
bring it up.
No, I didn't have the ponytail at the time. I don't think anyway.
You had a rat tail.
Did I? Was
did.
it a ponytail? Yeah. The rat tail would have been cooler.
You did have
But
one
it was
at one point.
it was a ponytail, yeah, for sure. But hey, love you, Taurus.
Thank you.
Keep
Your
making
love.
music. We'll have Taurus back on. Check out his music and everything else he told you to check out. We're going to put links in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, Allie. I know you're patiently waiting to end this so that you can go do what you got to do there. Right? No, you're good? You don't want me to talk about it? She doesn't want me to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it in detail. Right? No, I'm not going to. But thank you, Allie. I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone that watches and listens, and thank you especially to our patrons. You guys are fucking wonderful, and we're going to add some other tiers on there, too, with some merch and what have you. Purchase some merch. It helps us come out and watch us perform, whether it be our guests or myself, the Patrick Joanne Band. Thank you. We're on episode number 31 now, so I can't believe we've done so many. Here's to 310 more. 300,000 more episodes. See you guys on the next one. Say bye, Taurus.
Bye.
Later, guys.
Take care.